Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the live Q&A, the Facebook live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It is Thursday, the 8th of November, and it's a great pleasure to be with you this afternoon. I hope you have all been having a fantastic week. And a reminder that you can, for next November, in November 2019, you can be using the fantastic Professor Michael Scott calendar for 2019 with photos for every month that I've taken in a location around the world that I wanted to share with you. It's been great fun choosing the photos, and it's been great fun getting your orders and seeing the different dedications that you've asked for. So I hope those have all started to arrive with you now safe and sound, and if not, they'll be with you in a couple of days too. It's for sale on Amazon and also through the Facebook page. You can see the links there, so I hope you can grab one in the run up to Christmas. There are some stocks left, but they are limited. So there we go. November 2019 is me. Well, I was sailing on a felucca, one of the native ships that they boats that they use to sail on the Nile in Egypt. It's one of my favourite photos there. Hello Latifa, hello Jan, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining in on this live Q&A this Thursday. So we've had some great questions coming in over this past week. Marion, you've got your calendar. Great that it's arrived safe and sound. I'm so glad. I hope you enjoy. Please do leave your feedback and thoughts about the calendar, photos you particularly like. You can leave that through the Facebook page, or you can also do it on the Amazon website as well. Please do. It'd be lovely to hear your response and to hear which is your favourite photo. I've got a favourite of mine, but I won't tell you just yet which it is, maybe in a couple of weeks' time, closer to Christmas. So to questions that have come in from today, we've had a great one from Felix Burde. I hope I'm pronouncing your surname correctly, Felix. Felix Andreas Burde, and he's saying that they're reading Aristophanes' Frogs. Hello, Angela. How are you doing? Hello, Tifa. And you got the book. Okay, brilliant. I'm so glad that you got the book, Angela. Great stuff. Felix's class are reading Aristophanes' Frogs while they're doing their Classics A-level. And we were wondering, Felix was wondering if you could comment on how important comedy was for the ancient Greeks, and particularly the Athenians. Absolutely. Well, Aristophanes' Frogs is in fact also, Felix, the play that the Warwick Classics Society, Undergraduate Society, are going to be putting on in January up at Warwick. That's going to be on the 24th and 25th of January. So if you fancy seeing a live performance of the Frogs and bringing your school along with you, then the school's day, I think, now is sadly sold out on the 25th of January, but there are going to be tickets for the public performance in the main arts theatre and the arts centre at Warwick University for Thursday the 24th of January. They'll go on sale soon, so please do see if you can get along to come along with that. They've done their own translation. It is going to be done as a musical. The Frogs are going to be singing, and it's a brilliant play. So it was first performed in 405 BC in Athens. So that's, coming towards the crunch time of the Peloponnesian War, when Athens and its allies were facing up against Sparta and its allies, the great civil war that tore apart Greece at the end of the 5th century. And Athens is starting to look shaky. And things are going to go bad very quickly for Athens, 405, 404. And it will end, of course, with Athens losing the Great Peloponnesian War and losing its empire with it. So this is a moment when the Athenians are spending time still, going to the theatre, they're great festivals of drama, but they are not the assured, confident lot that they once were. And the play reflects that. It's a play about how Dionysus, the god of wine and also drama, goes down into the underworld to get back one of the great playwrights. They've lost Euripides, the last of the three great tragedians of Athens, Aeschylus, Sophocles, Euripides. Euripides died in 406, the year before. And now there's no one left to write something of the quality that's needed. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Cheryl. How are you doing? There's no one left in Athens, it seems, to write something of the quality and an inspirational nature that Athens really needs in its darkest hour. Glad to hear you got the calendar. So pleased that it got there to you. You're really pleased with it. Great. Do let us know what are your favourite photos as well for the months for 2019. So it's a play where Athens is thinking about itself and its position, and that's being reflected in this mythical comedy adventure of Dionysus down into the underworld, where he sort of goes along with his slave, and there's this fantastic repartee between him and his slave as they each get dressed up as Hercules in turn, as somebody, Heracles, who's managed to safely make it down into the underworld and back out again. And they end up bringing back with them not Euripides, but Aeschylus, the great first tragedian, the guy who was there at the Battle of Marathon back in 490, the first great challenge of the Athenian democracy. against the Persians, and he's brought back to put something on of equally inspirational value in Athens' time of need. Eleni, the frogs is your favourite. Yes, oh, you saw it this summer. Yeah, absolutely. If you can get to Athens, this is fantastic. The Odeon of Herodes Atticus in Athens, the Roman era theatre that was built at the bottom of the slopes of the Acropolis in the summer months, still does live performances, both of ancient plays and modern plays, and it is a spectacular setting to go and watch a play. And I remember seeing a version in Greek of Shakespeare's Twelfth Night, and also the Royal National Ballet, the English National Ballet, sorry, I should say, performing there on the stage, but Aristophanes' Frogs as well. So if you can in Athens, if you're in Athens over the summer, you should definitely get some tickets to see something in Herodes Atticus. Oh, Becky, you're back. You've been in Crete. Oh, you lucky devil. I bet the weather has been amazing. Hello, Laura. Hello, Deborah. Hello, everyone. Great that you could join us, Cheyenne. Thanks so much. You like the frogs too. Absolutely. So the frogs, there's this play which is setting up a moment of need. Athens needs a serious, steady, dramatic, inspirational hand to guide it through its present troubles. And it is, I think, fascinating that comedy was able to occupy this space in Athens. It happened at a different festival most of the time to the great tragedies. It didn't happen at the great Dionysia. It happened instead at a festival called the Lenaea. And that happened at a different time of year from the Dionysia, a time of year earlier, so we're talking January time, when it wasn't open sailing season. So there wouldn't have been as many non-Athenians in Athens when the Lenaea was on. And there really is this sense that the Athenians wanted, with their comedy festival, to more be washing their dirty linen to themselves rather than to the bigger show and tell that tragedy was very often supposed to be, talking about the great values of Athens and of Greece and of the empire of drama and how fantastic Athens was. So it really was a moment for Athens to show itself off to the world. Hello, Linda. Hello, Debbie. How are you doing? You've got, hi. Now, Debbie, you're going underground in Naples. Fantastic. Good luck. Enjoy it. Don't get lost. We did actually, I have to say, when we were filming Italy's Invisible Cities and we were in Naples Underground, it was the first day of filming and we lost someone down in the dark. The lights got turned off. We were there after hours. The lights got turned off and it is pitch black and you can't possibly find your way anywhere. And this poor person was lost for about half an hour before we managed to find them again. So don't get lost while you're down there. So the Lenaea was happening in Athens at this quieter time, January, when it was Athenians talking to themselves. And very much, I think we have to think about ancient comedy, not in the kind of situational comedy, if I say sort of one foot in the grave kind of stuff. That will be the later comedy of the 4th century and onwards, what's actually known as new comedy in ancient Athens. This Aristophanes is old comedy, and this was much more satirical. This was much more, have I got news for you, mock the weak. This was taking live issues and live individuals, and through myth and funny storytelling and often very bizarre and quite grotesque kind of scenes, taking very, very direct aim at those politicians. And some might say we could do with more of that kind of drama in our lives and in society right now, particularly, and our politicians should be able to take it. That was very much the view in ancient Athens. Politicians would have been in the audience amongst the crowds of Athenians, having to be lampooned in public to their faces. I can't quite imagine Donald Trump dealing with that quite so well, especially given the recent videos that I'm sure we've all been watching of him in press conferences and the sorts of things he's been getting up to. Christine, you don't get to listen to this, but you always have to catch it later. So good that you could join us live. Thank you so much for joining in. So ancient comedy, Athenian comedy, was meant to absolutely strike at the heart of politicians and individual power players within the city of Athens. And there was even a word in ancient Greek called the komedoumenoi, which means those who are made fun of in comedy. And really you weren't a serious Athenian kind of politician, power player individual if you hadn't been lampooned in Aristophanic comedy on the stage, if you hadn't made the grade to be somebody that Aristophanes would take aim at. You weren't really absolutely kind of top-notch player. So you really wanted to be, in some ways, one of the Commodoumenoi, but you had to be able to take it, smile, laugh along with everyone else, and move on. So yeah, so I think Frogs is a really interesting play. It's coming at that moment when Athens is feeling pretty shaky. It's a play about wanting one of the greats to come back from the dead, to be able to guide Athens through its difficult time, at a time when those Athenians in the audience watching this play would have been the same Athenians then going off to fight in the Peloponnesian War. So this was real. This isn't a sense of people going to the theatre for relaxation or entertainment or a getaway from everyday life. Theatre for the ancient Athenians was very much about real life and everyday life, and what they were thinking through in the theatre, laughing at, taking the mick out of, satirising, actually then had a very real impact kind of on what they then had to go off and do. Infamy, says Linda. Infamy, they've all got it in for me. Yes, Carry On Cleo, kind of, don't we all love the Carry On films? Kind of, I grew up on a diet of Carry On films, kind of Carry On Cleo being one of the best, but I was always wondering why they never did one about the Greeks. I was sure there was a great kind of Carry On the ancient Greek story to be done, but it never got done. So Felix, thank you so much for your question about ancient comedy, and very much I think we could do with more of that kind of satirising and taking the mick out of our key politicians right now, particularly given all the mess they get up to. And you guys, Felix also tells us, is going to be putting on their adaptation of Euripides' Trojan Women coming up in February. So kind of that's St Mary's College Classics drama page if you're interested in getting to see a production of Euripides' Trojan Women. I remember this being one of the plays that actually reduced me to tears. We've got a question coming up from Alison Risley, and one of the questions she asked is kind of, have you ever cried or got emotional over the discovery of significant objects, buildings or evidence? There's two answers to this, Alison. One is watching Euripides' Trojan Women, the moment when the women of Troy, after all the men have been killed and the Greeks have taken over, are forced into slavery, forced into arranged marriages with the Greek victors, and in particular, the child of Hector has to be killed because he cannot be allowed to grow up and pose a threat to the Greeks. And there you have a scene not only of him being ripped from his mother's arms, but then being taken up onto the citadel rooftops and thrown to his death by Greek warriors who aren't sure that they're doing the right thing either. Being watched by, if you imagine this being performed in Athens, being watched by a bunch of Greek warriors who are in the midst of their own imperial conquest, and perhaps not doing quite the same thing, but doing similar things to cities around the Aegean at the time. So you can imagine how that would have struck home to the audience that they were playing at. Yes, Latifa, yeah, we watched Euripides' Trojan Women, a video version, a film version that was done by a very famous Greek director in our series about ancient theatre, the Ancient Greeks, the greatest show on earth. And yes, yeah, it moved me to tears. The second thing that's moved me to tears, completely different and completely bizarre, I had no concept this was going to happen, was when we were filming his series about the history of Sicily. In the second episode, we are at the footsteps of Mount Enna, and we are meeting with and talking with a couple who run a vineyard there and whose family have run a vineyard there for generations. And we were literally faced with the wall of the 1981 volcanic eruption from Enna that sent this torrent of lava streaming down the hill, and it literally stopped about, I think it was 100 feet from their home. And when I say a torrent of lava, it was 20 feet high in the air, a solid wall of black lava that has remained there ever since. Now, this was extraordinary, but what we discovered as we were walking along the base of this solid lava field is that through the lava have now grown back some of the vines that were covered by the lava back in 1981. And that just got me. I don't know, I was born in 1981, and it was this idea that through my entire life, going around doing all the things I've been doing growing up, the vine had been there under the ground, pushing back through this solid lava to emerge back, finally triumphant, just in the last year or two before we'd arrived filming, and was now actually producing grapes again, that the vineyard owners were thinking of harvesting and creating as a special survivor wine, they wanted to call it a survivor wine for these extraordinary wines. The tenacity, it was something about the tenacity of human nature that just absolutely got me in that moment. And if you have a look at the program, I do a piece to camera there about the plant sitting next to that vine. And you can just see me start to wobble, my bottom lip start to wobble when I'm trying to sort of keep my emotions in check, feeling fairly silly as I'm about to burst into tears over a plant. But there you go. So Alison, thank you for that question. Also coming from Alison is a question, which is your top favourite building, monument, and why? From the ancient world, that's a really tough one. I mean, there's so many great places to choose from, but the one that I would never go to Athens and not go to is the Pnyx. So this is the hill opposite that of the Acropolis, and it's the democratic assembly place where the Athenian democratic citizens, male democratic citizens, given the nature of Athenian democracy, would gather together to stand, listen, and then vote on the key major issues. And I just think it's not a particularly interesting architectural space, although there is the Bema, the speaker's platform. It's a sort of semicircle looking in on this speaker's platform in stone. But there is something about it. There is something about the atmosphere there, the idea of you literally standing in the footsteps of some of the key moments of Athens' past and of thus of such an important era of human history. The Pnyx is possibly my top favourite place. But tell us yours as well. What is your favourite place from around the Greek and Roman Mediterranean worlds? Don't say the beach. Please, let's keep it archaeological. Although there are some great archaeological sites on beaches, that's to be said. Then you can get both for free. So yeah, tell us your favourite archaeological site or monument from the Greek and Roman worlds as well. I'd love to hear. Deborah, yes, you're watching the programme. Oh, bless you. It's not just me falling tearing up over plants. So thank you for those questions, Alison and Felix. Let's take a break to do some of the what's on with happening. So you may have seen this flagged on my Twitter account, but the Harris Academy Chafford 100 School over in Essex is doing their third annual Latin Spelling Bee. So this is a great chance to get involved if you're a school student studying some form of Latin. It's going to be on the 14th of March, and schools that are interested can bring their students along. There's more info on the Facebook page as well as through the Twitter account, but do get in touch with Pantelis, and there's an email there of Pantelis to get in touch with to get involved with that. But that's a great thing to be involved in. And also close to my heart as well, up in the north of the country, the Lytham St Anne's Classical Association have just launched their classics competition for 2019, and the key question is, what are your 3 favourite artefacts from the ancient world and why? Keep posted on the LSA Lytham St Anne's Classical Association Facebook page and website, because they'll be posting some of famous classicists talking about their 3 favourites, and I'll be putting something up there as well very soon. But also I'm going to be going up to judge the final, which will be on Saturday the 9th of February, so I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the finalists. There are prizes to be won, and anyone school age from 11 to 19 from across the country can enter. All the details are on www.lsaclassics.com. And you can get involved in that fantastic competition to win prizes, kindly sponsored by the Classical Association. So that's great from Lytham St Anne's, and I can't wait to see some of the results and judge the final. So Catherine, I visited the Acropolis for the first time 2 weeks ago and loved it. Want to go back there already? Oh, you lucky devil. I bet it was a lovely time of year, end of October, beginning of November time. Fantastic. What a time to be in Athens. I hope you also got some time to visit the Pnyx, and also some time to sit. The other key thing to always do in Athens is to take some time to sit in a good Greek cafe and sip some good Greek coffee for a long period of time. It's always said that you can tell in Greek coffee shops who's Northern Europeans and who are Southern Europeans. Northern Europeans go and they sit opposite one another because they've come to talk to one another and have a conversation, whereas Southern Europeans always tend to sit side by side because they know they're there to talk to one another, but also just to watch the world go by. Susie, El Gem Amphitheatre in Tunisia, one of your favourite. Oh, you lucky devil to have got to that one. I'm still waiting to get to El Gem. Oh, I would love to. Kind of so many sites, I think, along the whole coast of North Africa that were very, very reachable until sadly 2009, 2010, and now they've been sort of wiped off the map. I mean, I was slated to go on a couple of cruises that were taking people all the way along the coast of North Africa to some of the great sites in Libya, as well as in Tunisia, and now those sites are off the radar. Although I don't know whether you saw some of the stuff that was coming out recently in Simon Reeves' Mediterranean series, where he was in Libya and he was talking to the people, the locals, who have taken it upon themselves at Leptis Magna, one of the great Roman sites there, to protect it from damage. There are two great ancient sites in modern day Libya, Leptis Magna and Cyrene, and both have, I'm sure, suffered some damage as a result of all the difficulties and war in Libya over the past couple of years. But it's great to see that local people are taking it upon themselves to try their best to protect their national and international heritage. So yes, kind of it would be so nice to be able, and fingers crossed that in the not too distant future we can get back to some of those sites again on a more regular basis. So what's on? We've had what's on, and in the news. So I think there's been great Roman mosaics unearthed in England this week, in Boxford in England. A colourful Roman mosaic, 19 feet long, with characters and beasts from the Roman myths, including Hercules fighting a centaur. And the links are there on the Facebook page if you want to know more about that. The new Assyrians exhibition opens at the British Museum today. Opened a day or two ago, so absolutely get to see that if you can. And then also, I don't think we've posted this on the FB page yet, but we will do, which I was fascinated by, that people are now talking in Mycenaean Linear B. So this is the language, Linear B is the language written language used by the Mycenaean civilizations of Crete and of mainland Greece, so of the era of the Trojan War. And a lot of these documents refer to, they're kept in palaces, in archive rooms, and they're normally referring to the organisation and running of both the palace and the surrounding area. And what's been interesting is that they've identified a character in the Linear B which transliterates as Damo, which is pretty convincingly a direct link through then into Greek. You get demos, the people. And so there's this kind of interesting idea that there must be a communal group that is recognised and known as, even back as far back as Linear B in the Mycenaean age, as the Damo. And from the Linear B tablets, it seems that the Damo have some kind of control over different agricultural activities, although in this particular case, they also seem to be under the control of the Wanax, the great ruler of within the Mycenaean records. So it's an interesting case where we have this kind of communal grouping of people who seem to both somehow fit into the hierarchy. They're not slaves. They have some autonomy, some freedom. They have some control to run affairs in their own way, particularly to do with agriculture. But they also report to a higher power. So it's fascinating to see concepts that will later become so important, like the demos, going all the way back into Mycenaean Linear B. So I wanted to flag that with you guys because I thought that was absolutely extraordinary. We've got time for a couple more questions. Angela Ryder has been asking about buying texts in translations and how to choose between different versions of translations. And she pointed out that when we did the Ancient Greece Greatest Show on Earth series about ancient theatre, I often had a Loeb, the green Loeb text in my hand. Yes, we did. That was for two practical reasons. One, they are kind of an old favourite that I often fall back on. Two, they're very portable because of their size, and we were carrying quite a few around with us on location to different places. Shirley, you visited Cyrene. You were only 4, your dad was in the army. Wow, you are so lucky. I wrote a lot about Cyrene for a book, The Space and Society and the Greek and Roman Worlds book that I published back in 2012 with Cambridge University Press, one of my first academic books, and was fascinated by mainly the Italian excavation reports. It's often an Italian dug site, but I would absolutely love to go and see it for myself. But we're asking about translations, and Angela was asking whether there are particular favourites or particular ones I'd recommend. The Loebs are always reliable, but depending on which author you're talking about, they update them on different bases. So sometimes you can end up looking at a Loeb text and it's kind of ye doth thee, and it kind of sounds like you're almost reading Chaucerian or Shakespearean English. So you definitely need to go elsewhere. Anything of Penguin Classics is always absolutely brilliant, but I often think that it's really important to, if you are thinking about why one should go for a particular translation, that you do some comparison of translations, pick up a couple, and have a look at some of the differences. Have a look at what kind of actually difference a different translator makes to the text. Where are they diverging? And that gives you some indications of the kind of crux and important and difficult, knotty problems that come up in translation. I mean, this was pointed out to me recently with Emily Wilson's fantastic new translation of the Odyssey, the first Western female translator of the Odyssey into English. One of the things that comes up in the very first lines of her translation, the first lines of the Odyssey, where it's, tell me, Muse, about this, and then the Greek word is polytropon, a man. Now that's most often translated by male translators in past translations as a positive thing, a man of many wiles, of many turns, of cunning. And Emily goes for and said, tell me, Muse, about this complicated man, which brings a brilliant question mark and a certain ambiguity to the nature of this person, whether his polytroponness is a good thing or a bad thing, which actually is utterly central to the Odyssey and to the story of Odysseus as a character. Not only, of course, his cunning, his polytropon nature allows him to get out of lots of scrapes, but it also makes him a very difficult character to relate to and deal with, and one that we don't always entirely agree with either. So there, kind of Emily Wilson's translated, just going with that one word, flipping that one word, helps, I think, bring the translation forward into the 21st century and offer up a much more even-handed picture of Odysseus. So Angela, thank you for that question. That was absolutely great, absolutely, utterly kind of crucial. We've had a fantastic question here from Lee Steele about Roman recipe books. Can I recommend any books about Roman recipes? Someone wants to get cooking and offer up a Roman dinner party. Kind of, Donna, you're talking about Delos. Yes, Delos. It's one of my favourite sites in the ancient world and definitely worth it. You have to go to Mykonos and you have to stay overnight on Mykonos to be able to go to Delos. So you sort of hang there on Mykonos with all these party goers, and you're up early to get the first boat to Delos, and all the party goers are just going to bed. But it's definitely worth doing, getting to Delos and spending your time there. In fact, I was lucky enough back in 2011 to be able to stay in the French excavation dig house on Delos overnight. So I was actually living on Delos for a week when nearly everyone else has to go home with the last boat at 4 o'clock. You can't actually stay overnight on the island unless you're with one of the staying in the archaeological dig house. So that was a very, very special time to be able to kind of investigate the place when you had almost this ancient island of huge importance to yourself. Kind of the it wasn't quite to yourself, because there were lots of snakes. When you turn up at the archaeological dig house on Delos, there's a big sign on the back of your door with lots of identification pictures of the different types of snakes that live on the island and that are very prevalent on the island, because people are not on the island all the time. And so if you wake up in the middle of the night and have to go and use the outside toilet of the dig house, you have to be particularly careful that you don't walk into some pretty poisonous snakes while you're there. We've got time for one more question. So Lee Steele was talking about Roman recipe books. Absolutely, there's a couple I can recommend. So M. Grant, Roman cooking, but also Sally Granger's Cooking Epicurus. Those are two really good ones to choose. But if there's an ancient text I would advise you to go and have a look at as well, then it is Petronius's Cana Trimalchionis, the dinner party of Trimalchio. And this is a brilliant satirical piece where Petronius is writing about a nouveau riche guy called Trimalchio, who's got all the flash, all the cash, but no idea about how to behave as a upper-class Roman would. And he's throwing a dinner party where he wants to impress, and he does it by putting every dish under the sun on the table, and then some more, and then wanting to be seen as able to have everything and offer everything to his guests. It's a riotous read, the dinner party of Trimalchio, the Cana Trimalchionis, and it's definitely well worth doing. But my word of advice to you, Lee, is that before you get too carried away, I would check whether your guests that you're inviting to this dinner party really want to be eating stuffed dormice, or even worse, garum, that fish paste that Romans seem to love, and which gets so far around not just the Mediterranean world, but even further. In the remains of garum, of fish paste, have actually been found in the south southeastern Indian port of Pondicherry, where there was an ancient port, and it seems that there was some kind of Roman warehousing there, and possibly some kind of expat Roman community living there, because there is evidence in the amphorae that have been found when you analyse the amphorae for not just wine but also garum. So this fish paste, disgusting as it sounds, was finding a market as far away as southeastern India. Thank you so much, Lee, for your question. We've come to the end of our time. I'm so sorry we haven't got to your questions, but we will get to them next week. We'll be back next week, which is Thursday the 15th of November, 4 o'clock as always. I hope you can join us then. And if you've got more questions, do send them in to the Facebook page over the course of the week, and we will definitely get to answer them. I hope you've got a fantastic week. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. I'm off to the Classics conference at the ICS, where we're looking about how classics has been used, the ancient stories of the Greeks and Romans have been used and abused to a certain extent by different countries around the world, and I'm going to be talking about what China has done and is doing with ancient Greece. That's at the ICS tomorrow. And then next week also I'm talking for the Warwick Globalists about democracy, ancient and modern then and now, and you can follow some of that both on Twitter and through the Facebook page. We'll put some links up. But I'll be seeing you guys next Thursday at 4 o'clock on the 15th, and until then, have an absolutely fantastic week and weekend. Thanks very much.